Welcome to the regular town council meeting, town of Cave Creek, Arizona, Monday, July 17th, 2023. We'll save the pledge of allegiance until the public session. The meeting is now called to order, and the council will go into executive session at 5 p.m. with the regular session to begin at 6. If we have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Welcome again to the regular town council meeting, town of Cave Creek, Arizona. It's Monday, July 17th, 2023. The meeting is hereby called to order. We've had the roll call, Teresa. We're all set there. We just came out of an executive session and it's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mike, would you lead us in the pledge? It's my neighbor, Mike. All you have to remember is live.
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public announcements. We had sad news that a former member of the Town Planning Commission, Tom Davenport, passed away last week. I'd like to offer our condolences to his family and honor his service. He was a veteran. The town runs on volunteers, and Tom was one of those who answered the call, so we appreciate that. Paul, would you like to say something?
I was on the commission with him, and Tom was a positive contributor. He had strong thoughts and he was willing to share them, and it was always appreciated. So we'll miss him. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to read my opening statement. We from time to time, we have a lot of really weighty items tonight. So I wanted to make sure anybody who hadn't been before hears this. Before we begin our meeting, I'd like to clarify how it is conducted and specifically the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment is welcome. This is one of the many ways to inform your local governmental representatives and staff of issues that are important to you or to suggest improvements in the way we conduct the town's business. Our goal is to have a welcoming and friendly atmosphere between our community members and local government. Speakers are reminded to address their comments to the mayor and council and not to the audience. Arizona open meeting law governs these activities and greatly restricts how meetings are conducted and how council members may communicate outside of the public meeting. There are two opportunities for the public to speak. First, at call to the public immediately following these remarks, you will have an opportunity to speak to council, staff, and all those participating and watching via Zoom. There can be no discussion by council of items raised, but we can direct staff to investigate. Arizona law requires that all discussed items be published and advertised, be on a published and advertised agenda, so all parties have notice of potential action. Speakers must come to the podium and speak directly to the council. Speaking to the staff or to other audience members is not permitted. Please speak clearly into the microphone. To begin, state your name and address for the record, because there are minutes kept for this. You will have 3 minutes to speak on the relevant subject. You will note a set of 3 lights on the podium. Green means you are within your 3 minutes. It turns yellow as your time is about to expire, and red when your time is expired. At that point, please expeditiously conclude your thoughts. The second way to publicly communicate with us during the public comment or public hearing section on an agenda item. Speaking is conducted the same way as called to the public at the microphone and limited to 3 minutes. If you wish to speak at either of these opportunities, please take a form on the table near the door and fill out your information. Please hand it to our town clerk, Teresa Riza, sitting here to the left of the council members. She will call your name when it is your time to participate. Thank you for attending our council meetings and taking the time to participate and express yourselves. Democracy in action. Does anyone else on council have a public announcement?
I had one thing, Bob. We've had extensive discussions about the state land trust documents, and Teresa has done an absolutely wonderful job for the council of collecting all of those documents in one place and on a hard copy, and it's awesome. Thank you very much.
In the interest of time, we're going to take a couple of these out of the order because they're being continued or likely to be continued, depending on the vote of council.
But we have to do consent agenda first.
Do we have to do consent agenda? Yes, we do.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. On the consent agenda, approval of the June 19th, 2023 regular council meeting minutes. The council action is the motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. General agenda items. Okay, now we're going to take.
And Mayor, there are no speakers for call of the public, so
I'm sorry.
we can skip.
Call the public. All right, we'll do call the thing.
There are no speakers.
There are no speakers.
We knew that.
Town manager report.
Wait a minute.
Hmm?
Did you want to speak on an item? We do have a speaker. for
Okay.
Laura G.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank and acknowledge our Marshall Stein, his efforts down on our highways, the bubble gum machine, pulling over and speaking, I guess, with speeders has been noticed and appreciated. It's a calmer world out there for me when I'm driving in town, and I appreciate that. And thanks to anyone in this room and elsewhere who has also been making this a priority to deal with some of the happy-footed folks we have going through town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's always nice to hear something nice. Town managers report.
Mayor, members of council and the public, I've got a couple of announcements. Reminder that tomorrow at 11 a.m. is the local landmark ceremony at Indian Village at 11 a.m. And we have a project at Arroyo Road where we're going to connect Arroyo Road as a gravel road from Echo Canyon to the cul-de-sac. And there will be a public meeting where flyers have gone out to the property owners along there. But it is a public meeting on Tuesday, July 25th at 6 p.m. Here in the council chambers. It's a little warm to have that on site along the roadway these days. Following up on the Arroyo Road, I have a report on the transplants into the medians that have occurred to date. We had, let's see, in February, we had several barrel cactus moved into the town core. I don't remember exactly how many, 12, Luke? 30? Oh, so, oh, the little ones?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, the little, sorry. 30. I can't even read my own writing. And then in June, we had 12 saguaro spears ranging in height from 3 feet to 7 feet that were also moved into the medians in the town core. But out along Arroyo Road, we have 58 more in inventory that would be added to the medians in the town core, which range from like 20 hedgehogs and some prickly pear cacti, barrel cacti. We've got 5 ocotillo and several small saguaros and a couple large saguaros that would be moved. So a total of 58 additional to add to that inventory in the town core. So that it'll be good news. So that'll happen when we have those moved when we're ready to start on that project. And then last but not least, I'd like to report on the traffic enforcement that Ms. Gee referred to. We do have an increase in traffic enforcement, both by MCSO and the marshal's office. For example, in February this year, I'm going to give some combined totals. The MCSO and marshal's traffic stops were 29. In March, they were 33. By April, it was up to 46 total. And in May, we had 49. We don't have the report yet from MCSO for June, and we're only partially through July. But in June and July, the marshal's office has focused solely on the town core. And in June, we had 20 stops, and so far in July, we have 15 stops just in the town core. And that's all my report for this evening.
That traffic enforcement, I think, is applauded all over town.
Yes.
The general agenda items, we're going to take item number 10 out of order. I'm glad I get some help up here. Let's do
That
it.
was-
We did consent.
We did the consent.
We did.
Yes, we did.
All right, well, that was a long while ago. It was
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
We'll take item number 10 out of order because it's going to be continued. So we don't want people waiting around the whole meeting and find out it's continued. So we'll let them know that it's not going to be discussed tonight. This is a council discussion approval of Resolution R 2023-10, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, approving concurrent ground leases for town property located at 4300 East Carefree Highway and vacant property located within the town core.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we table resolution R 2023-10 until a legal question is resolved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next agenda item is, was put on the agenda by myself. It's council discussion regarding budget approval. We had a very narrow budget vote on the budget this year. It was 4-3. I had heard anecdotally many times that the town cannot spend money without an approved budget, which is, we have found to be true. I asked town staff to investigate the consequences of not having a budget, to put that anecdotal evidence into something that was hard and legal that we really understood. In doing so, we contacted the League of Arizona Cities and Towns, which is an association that represents all 90 plus cities and towns in Arizona, and they really know their stuff. They've seen everything for many, many decades, and they have a very broad experience in this. We got an email from their general counsel, Nancy Davidson. I think it was earlier this month. And I'm just going to read that, and then we're going to have comments on it from council, but there will be no public discussion. In response to your question, I looked in our files and could not find any instance when a city or town failed to pass a budget. I also talked to Lee Grafstrom, our tax analyst, and Tom Belshey. He is the executive director. They are not aware of any city or town failing to pass a budget. I would be surprised to find anything because failing to pass a budget would clearly violate state law and create a legal mess for the city or town. Among other issues, a city or town that fails to pass a budget would likely face a 1487 complaint and the real possibility of losing its share of shared revenues. Residents could presumably, I'm going to make a footnote there, shared revenues are money that the state gives us, which is 20% of our budget or some such. It's significant. I'm not going to be held to the number. Those are shared revenues. Residents could presumably file a special action to seek a court order compelling the council to pass a budget. Residents could also file recall petitions against council members. As you know, it could also put the city, town at risk of not being insured from the municipal risk pool in the future. The failure to pass a budget could also impact any bond rating. The municipal risk pool is our insurance. When council members take office, they sign a loyalty oath attesting they agree to faithfully follow the law and discharge the duties of their office. A budget is one of the most basic duties of their office. The actual impacts of failing to discharge this duty would be devastating. A city town that does not pass a budget would be required to shut down. State law is very clear that a city/town cannot spend any money for a purpose that is not included in an approved budget. ARS Section 42-17106. If there is no approved budget, the city can't spend money on anything. Municipal employees would not get paid. Residents would be cut off from municipal services, which would obviously be devastating. No utilities, police, fire protection, developmental services. Creditors and contractors would not get paid, which could expose a city or town to lawsuits for money damages and attorney fees. FYI, the state legislature is not subject to ARS 42-17106. Regardless, a city government that shuts down has much more devastating impacts because the services they provide directly impact the day-to-day lives of their residents. My 2 cents. It's signed by Nancy L. Davidson, General Counsel, League of Arizona Cities and Towns. So I'm going to open that up to any comments from council.
Yes, the budget is a negotiating process. It takes place over a period of time. There's input from the community. There's extensive input from council members. So it's not something that happens out of the blue. It is a part of an ongoing process and has a great deal of review before it comes to the council for approval.
Anyone else? Oh, we're on to agenda item number 2, which is amended 7/12/23. Council discussion and approval of amended and restated resolution R 2023-02, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, declaring the certain document filed with the town clerk and entitled Short-Term Rental Public Health and Safety Protections as a public record pursuant to ARS 9-802, presented by the town attorney.
Mr. Mayor, members of council. This has been a process that has taken a number of months. This has flown, we've received input from you and the constituents. This is the resolution where you're approving the text. So this would be the item where you would discuss revisions to the text. Since the last draft that was circulated, we've requested council. We've strengthened the language to address things like disorderly conduct and to make sure that they can be enforced. There's been some discussion and questions about whether or not by adopting this, you are levying a transaction privilege tax, also known as sales tax. You're not. The sales tax already exists. It is charged against transient rentals and long-term rentals. It also is charged for bed, and there's also a bed tax. That tax exists. One reason this legislation was authored primarily at the behest of some of the larger cities is that they were having difficulty enforcing their TPT, their sales tax. By adopting this ordinance, and more importantly, hiring a vendor who will be available 24/7 to monitor and paid for out of fees paid by the short-term operators can help enforce it. I know there's some concerns about protecting the interest of local homeowners, owner-occupied short-term rentals. One of the key components in this that's allowed by statute, and it is in your ordinance, is the ability to in effect suspend up to a year a license. The target here really is the out-of-town managers and owners who go and buy a number of short-term rentals, and then hire management teams to manage. They're not on scene. And so you have a very rapid process here that if in fact they don't respond to a complaint in 60 minutes, that's a violation. If they do it 3 times, they can be suspended. But once you suspend a multi-million-dollar home that has been bought by an investor who wants to operate it as a short-term rental, that then hurts their cash flow. And I've talked to the marshal. Right now, once you retain the vendor would call the marshal. He then will respond to make sure that the 60-minute clock starts ticking. And it does. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, this is the really a formality, that just references the actual document, which is the code which is going to follow in item number 3.
Except though if you want to change the text, now would be the time to change the text.
You want to just do them both together?
Well, you can easily do that. Yes, sir. You could say movement and it'd be best, I think, to get the text resolved. And then adopt the resolution, then you would adopt the ordinance passing the resolution and text you just did. We can, or you can do it, but the problem is if we have disagreement, then I don't know what'll happen. So,
Okay, well, let's take number 3 and number 2 together. And so
Okay.
we'll also talk about the text of the short-term rental. Do you have anything else to say about
No, sir.
we've been through this many, Carrie, do you have something?
Mayor, would you like me to, there were some questions I know from council. I thought I would report on those. So all the council and public have the information. The town attorney talked about the town marshal being the one to be contacted. There will be a new, we have a new leadership at MCSO, and so he'll be meeting with him. And he will be asking that in the meantime, until this would take effect, that he would be notified of any complaint so that he knows that there's an issue live when it's happening, that he can respond if possible.
sorry,
Are you okay?
I'm gonna die on you, sorry. Moved away, so I'm not affected.
We wanted to also present some information about to clarify for the public, the taxing. There is a 3% sales tax, a transaction privilege license tax. And we also have in place a 4% bed tax. Those taxes, the bed tax has been in place since at least 1999 or before. This is not new, and anyone who is renting currently, even though we are proposing these regulations, if you're renting a room or it's a hotel, these taxes are in place and should be paid. So we aren't instituting this bed tax as tied to this process.
I thought we were gonna have a Heimlich maneuver there for
Yeah.
a second.
Thank you for.
In terms of numbers, we did a little research back in February. We contacted vendors. We were researching the vendors. For example, in February, and this fluctuates from month to month, the number of listings for short-term rentals was 205. The finance director pulled some numbers that we receive that are coded by hotel tax. It's like a sales tax, and then the additional bed tax. So for example, in March, which are number of businesses that reported February earnings, we had a total of 19 that paid the 3% tax. And of those 19, 17 businesses also paid the 4% tax. And in February, we're showing in the town limits 205 listings. So that's what we have, what our records show that we collected in the tax for that month. So it just kind of gives you an idea of, even though anyone who is renting out a room or have a motel, hotel, they pay tax. So that's a different numbers of what we see as businesses versus what we're collecting. Let's see if there's anything else. I think that's everything. If I missed any of your questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. So with the approval of this ordinance, do you think that enforcement of the taxes will improve? I mean, obviously, it needs improvement.
Having the vendor that is able to look month to month of, who's out there, and we would be able to notify those folks with a letter of what the process is and kind of bring them into the application process. And we would have that on file. And once they're registered for the year, as time goes on over a few months and people learn of the process, most people will be in, but there's always new vendor, new people who are renting out rooms that we would continually look, and we'd have the ability to do this using this software through a vendor. So I think that is a plus. I mean, right now, we really don't have a way to go out and easily search for those within the town limits. And then they would also have a business license and we are a program city with the Department of Revenue, so folks that are renting out rooms or have hotels, bed and breakfast, et cetera, they pay the tax directly to the Department of Revenue, and then the Department of Revenue remits our portion to the town of Cave Creek. So it's more of a awareness issue. I think we'll be able to reach people and help them understand what the rules and regulations are.
Okay, thank you.
But the remedy would be, if you would have the vendor telling you, and then if you have a short-term rental operator who failed to pay, that's a violation for which you get 3 of those, they're suspended. And so I think there will be a mechanism, a greater formal mechanism to enforce. That's what Scottsdale has found.
I have a question for Bill. And this is a question I got yesterday on the phone. In simple language, on a short-term rental, what are the safeguards against renting to a sex offender? What's the story on that? Just simple language,
So,
please.
well, the problem is the legislature left you holding the bag. It said if a short-term operator knowingly leases out to a sexual offender, that it's a violation. But then how there's no way that you could, when the Uber drives up with the person, you stand at the curb to do a check. So what we've said is to acknowledge the duty to look into it. We said you can have a safe harbor. You can in effect demonstrate you didn't knowingly violate by checking the National Register. That's in your ordinance. Other ordinances actually require checking. And technically the way you read it requires checking all the way to the door. And there's no way that you can put that burden on the short-term operator, but you, as the statute gives you the right to look into it. We've drafted it so that they can't knowingly violate it. One way they can demonstrate they didn't knowingly violate is to check the register, and that's fairly simple.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? I have 2. Putting this into perspective. The state legislature passed this, and cities and towns all around us are putting in essentially the same procedures. What would be the effect if we became the one town that did not put these procedures into effect? And everyone around us did. What in your judgment would happen?
You are an area with quite attractive dwellings. Much like when Prescott put up new statutes to move sober living homes, and they came here initially. And you then adopted an ordinance to regulate sober living homes. If you were to become more lenient, by lenient, I mean more permissive. And I must admit, when I first gave you my ordinance, I used a very, very, very aggressive that some of your constituents didn't like. I took that from one of the jurisdictions that was very much wanted to give you the absolute control. For example, requiring pesticides every 2 weeks. So there's no way you could do that. So we took that all out. Right now, you have a reasonable approach. It is an approach that really does. I've learned from talking to the other city attorneys in other jurisdictions. This is a reasonable approach. It doesn't go too far. For example, you don't require. The statute technically requires $500,000 of insurance. Well, guess what? If they're on VRBO or all, they're going to require it. And if you're a short-term owner here, you're going to have homeowners insurance. So we didn't put the 500 grand in here. But I believe if you were to become more lenient than those around you, you would be more likely to attract short-term operators, short-term rental operators.
Secondly, take us through a complaint. It's midnight, Saturday night, and there's dancing in the streets. It's noise, can't sleep, raucous, drunken behavior. How does a resident handle that? Take me through the process from that all the way through.
Yes, sir. Well, first, let's figure out if we trip over they violate. There is a state code for disorderly conduct. At your request, Mayor, we've included that says disorderly conduct would be a violation. And a violation, and I'm gonna read some other violations that are in your code. Excessive noise or traffic, obstruction of public streets, public drunkenness, service of alcohol to minors, fights, disturbance of the peace, all those would be violations. So now we have a violation. The vendor, the operator has to put up a card at the door and the back door that says, here's who you call if you have a problem. They will call your vendor. Your vendor is the person, the companies that Teresa's evaluating. They do this all over for many cities and towns. They then would listen, validate the complaint. They would call the marshal, and the marshal then would appear. And if indeed, if there's an accident, if something happens at an owner occupied short-term rental, the owner's probably there. There won't be a violation. Marshal talks to them and they correct it. If it's a short-term rental owned by an out-of-state investor, then guess what? That manager better show up in 60 minutes, otherwise it's a violation. 3 strikes, you're out, and they get suspended in 1 year. I want to read where the appeals. In the event of any person designated as emergency conduct, upon the request of the public safety personnel shall respond within 1 hour to the physical location for which they are and then this will be a civil offense for any person designated to not do that. But you really lose, if you're really relying on fines, it's not going to work, because your dwellings are so expensive that they can take a fine as the cost of doing business. What you need to do, particularly if your goal is policing up the out-of-state short-term operators, is to get the 3 violations in 1 year and suspend them, which this does. And it allows you to do it through an appeal process that doesn't run through the rigors of the magistrate court. You can use a hearing officer. So that it would go to the manager, we could have a rapid appeal, 3 of them in 1 year, and you can suspend. And the reason I think that it isn't that, in my view, if I'm a local owner, I'm there living, I probably will be there when the phone call occurs. So when the marshal drives up, there won't be the violation for 60 minutes. But most importantly, the marshal will use his skills to talk to the property owner and say, we've got to work this out.
Great. Any other questions? We have public comment on this.
Mike Haddock.
Although a majority may be intent on passing this STR proposal with the time and effort invested, let's review what we expect this STR to accomplish for Cave Creek. Discussion has centered on nuisance party homes, fees, and taxes. It would be shamefully disingenuous to allow those in need of relief from party house disturbances to believe this proposal will prove a timely solution for them. It flat out will not and cannot. This requires 3 verified violations in a 12-month period. That triggers a license action. Sluggish at best for those citizens. This is simply the wrong tool. It will not do the job. There is a better way. Update the nuisance ordinance. Properly structure it to address all types of properties. This will swiftly restore the peaceful enjoyment of homes and neighborhoods. This is the smart and the right tool. This proposal does inflict overwhelming and undeserved punishment on the 40 local mom and pop operators who cause no problems. This is all to apply pressure and knock out 2 or 3 nuisance party houses. This is not smart business or public policy approach. Again, it's the wrong tool for the job. It punishes the good guys. If implemented, Cave Creek will lose many STRs. They will convert to long-term rentals or go underground. Put yourselves in their shoes. They don't need the best and the worst partner from hell being the township with its burdensome proposal. That's tossing the baby out ahead of the bathwater, or shotgun fly control. Is this not what the socialists do to destroy the private sector? Is that what you expect from this proposal? At full participation, the proposal license fees would be less than $10,000 income. This STR proposition will require many times that to administer, making it a revenue negative big time. This is unneeded in Cave Creek. Vote down this inappropriate STR proposition. Tax and license reasonably within the existing revenue and finance structure. Use effective and less imposing means to solve our problem. And I'd like to ask for a little verification on tonight's information about how many rentals and how many of them are STRs. The data is not out there easily available. I found approximately 200 total rentals and less than 40 short-term rentals on both of the platforms. And many of them are listed as Cave Creek, but they're not in Cave Creek. And that's the best I could find. So if there's a clarification, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Sweenhart.
Thanks for your time. My name is Chris Swainhart, 5701 East Rancho Manana. First of all, I'd like to thank the town council for the time you spend on this project. I was here a couple of months ago and expressing my discomfort as well as that of our neighbors with these type of violations that we're really talking about here today. And it's an unusual situation. And I looked back on that and I appreciated the platform that you gave me, and things haven't really changed. It's pretty much the same. This last week, one of my neighbors told me that a party group was walking down the street of 10 people smoking dope as they were enjoying our neighborhood. And of course, there's been the usual noise and rowdiness and so forth. Now, growing up, and maybe you would be the same experience. If you were living, take it back when you were young, if there was such a short-term rental right next door to you, you would have been surprised, shocked. The neighborhood would have been up in arms because such a thing is going on. But today, we accept it as a matter of course. And why is that? I wonder why that is. I think a large part of it is the prevalence of big e-commerce sites that are shoving this down the communities all over this country. I don't think that's a good thing for America, and I think it's a very bad thing for Cave Creek. You know, our lives are more than just money. In my opinion, this needs not only be regulated, but I think we should do something more like the Dallas initiative, which was just announced last month, where they announced that they wanted to make short-term rentals completely illegal in single-family residential neighborhoods. Now, to me, that would be a satisfactory and a much easier way to administer and change this problem. So I don't know if that's a possibility. You are spend a lot more time on it than I can, and but I just think, do we really want to change our communities so that they become more of a mecca for short-term rentals, for people that are partying? You know, you would say, do we want to be like Sedona, or do we want to be like Old Town Scottsdale, where the majority of places to live are now short-term rentals? I don't think so. I think that will hollow out our community, and that's something that's not really desirable for Cave Creek. So I urge you to do your best. I'm supporting this in the little manner that I can. I think you're trying to do something, but I think that people that oppose this need to realize that our communities need to be more than profit centers and ways to make money for investors. It really needs to be a community of people, and that's what really makes a city worth living in. That's just my thoughts. And again, my thanks to you for getting on top of this and trying to do something. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swainhart.
Laura G.
Evening. Creekers are clear. We want party houses dealt with on the spot. We want 24-hour contact information. That's something everybody agrees on. But these items can easily be handled within the existing code. It's not that anyone opposes an ordinance, it's the approach. Let's make it workable. Instead, we're talking about fees and cumbersome applications and a new bureaucracy and expensive vendor. We have to focus on the people responsible for the disturbances. Other people are worrying that somewhere, somehow, someone's not paying their fair share of taxes. Well, these are different things. It's a muddled mission, and it shows. This text and this proposal remains a muddled mess, a conflicting, unworkable language. The latest definitions are vague. We still are not clear on what an STR is and what an STR is not. That's basic. New terms have appeared with no definitions at all. New definitions have appeared for terms that are not in the text. Completely new pages have been added. Previously omitted sections have reappeared. The entire tone is spiteful and hateful in this proposal. It reeks of a personal vendetta. Really? Is this the image we want for Cave Creek? What's the town thinking? This is far too much effort to shut down 2 or 3 bad actors. We can do this, but we are stepping on our property rights in our zeal to stomp out troublemakers. In the rush to do something, 2 important laws have been ignored. ARS 9-500-39B1, paraphrasing, a municipality must demonstrate a need for this type of regulation, not just a want. There has been no clear demonstration of need for Cave Creek. The Cave Creek Ordinance 030.59. An ordinance title must contain one subject and one subject only. This subject on this proposal, it's a rental ordinance, it's a health and safety ordinance. Sadly, what it is not is a sensible, workable ordinance. There has been very little public outreach, minimal transparency, changes out of the public view, confused and delayed drafts, and a general lack of clarity. Interestingly, studies show that when these type of harsh STR regulations come in, more than 50% of overnight lodging is lost overnight. Property owners will find other uses for their properties. Is disappearing inventory the intent of our overregulation? Note that the lost properties in Cave Creek will be the affordable room down the hall and the 1 and 2 bedroom offerings. This means that fewer visitors will stay over and spend money in Cave Creek. What remains will be the large luxury house rentals. In other words, what we are doing is encouraging the very party houses that we seek to tone down in the first place. Do you really want to be the council that will be begging property owners to please offer affordable overnight lodging? Do you want to be the council that has to remedy a bad decision? It comes down to approach. You choose. Do we focus on the issue, or do we spin off into busy work that will create ill will and get us nowhere? I think it's time to cowboy up. Do the right thing. Set this particular language aside, even if it hurts. Insist on a functional, workable approach. We do not need to create a bureaucracy and pay an expensive vendor to manage this issue. Strengthen the nuisance ordinance. That will solve a lot of what grieves residents. Taxes are being paid by honest operators. Find out where those monies are going and claw that back. If you locate anyone ducking taxes, handle that through the existing revenue and finance code. Use a focus group to sort out the best approach for Cave Creek. As it stands, this particular STR proposal is wrong for Cave Creek, and it is far from ready for adoption.
Thank you, Ms. Key.
Mike Haddock on behalf of Janet Moore.
This will be brief. She had a little trouble on the road and asked me to read this for her. Hear me okay now? I see there is no provision for false claims. This is a shame, as they will cost the town quite a bit of time, money, and resources. Just look at the history of certain citizens and you know this is going to happen. Per ARS statute, STR should be defined as 30 days or less. I don't see that defined here at all. The laws for eviction change at 30-day tenancy, and many times people will lease for longer than 30-day time frame. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Haddock.
No additional subs.
Okay, we're back to council. And we should take item number 3 first, which is the actual, no, excuse me, we should take item number 2 first, which is the enabling motion. Is there a motion on item number 2?
Mayor, I'll do it. Motion to approve, excuse me, amended and restated resolution R 2023-02. A resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, occurring as a public record, a certain document filed with the town clerk and entitled Short-Term Rental Public Health and Safety Protections.
Second.
You had the motion?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is just letting them know what we're doing, and then the next one is actually the teeth of the matter. So I've got no comment now.
I will comment. I think what we have here is a reasonable approach to this. We do want the business. We do want to make available the opportunity for good behaving people to come in. We want to protect the people who have the mom and pop short-term rentals. Those have not been a problem. We do not want to penalize them. So I think the approach that we're taking is a reasonable compromise.
Other comments from council? With that, we will vote, be a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We're on item number 3, which is the actual language of the short-term rental. And I believe we are ready for a motion on that.
I'll do that as well if you. Number 3, let's see, a motion to approve second reading of ordinance 2023-02, an ordinance to the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending the town of Cave Creek Town Code by adding chapter 112 of Title 9 entitled Short-Term Rental Public Health and Safety Protections.
Second.
Okay, you have the,
Yeah, I guess one of the main things here is the fact that we are sitting here without protections that the state has afforded us finally after many years of abuses by short-term rentals. You know, one of the comments I heard was looking at the enforcement of the nuisance things. I'll tell you some nuisance ordinance enforced on transient visitors ineffective because the nature of the term transient. Once they're gone, they're gone. By enacting this, those transients can cause those people to lose their rights to be short-term rentals. And I see that as a pretty good hammer in order to get a handle on the STRs that are actually abusive to the neighborhoods where they are. If we don't do this, we'll end up with a whole lot more of them that we've got no control over. It would, in my mind, it would be irresponsible of us to not try and bring some relief to the neighbors who are dealing with these type businesses in their neighborhoods as it stands now. That's.
you have the second?
I concur with Mayor Bunch, and I spoke to this issue.
Oh, I got. Did I just get elevated in stature?
You
here?
did.
Good speech.
I'm sorry. I'm
After all
sorry, Mayor
these years,
Morris.
You've got 2 years on me.
Other comments from council? Yeah, I have a couple of comments. I'm really struck by the fact that 80% of the short-term rentals in town are not paying their taxes. 80%. Second is, this is not a business area or industrial area where you expect noise, you expect something to be going. And these are residential neighborhoods where people are raising kids. They're trying to sleep at night. And it's not like your neighbor has a party once a year. This could be every weekend. Third point is consistency. If we aren't consistent, we will be the mecca and all the houses, and the problem will get far worse. So in some extent, this is preventing problems, even though we have problems in town right now. We did not have some of the people that have been contacting me. I have been deluged with YouTube videos of noise and people walking around showing the problems at some party houses in town here. So I'm in favor of this. Vice Mayor, is there anything else
I think that it's also important to protect our community. I agree that it's not an overwhelming prevalence in Cave Creek that this is happening. I think that we're taking the necessary steps, even though they might be presumed to be to penalize the small business owner who has a casita that he or she is renting once a month. And I hope that that will not be the case. Because first and foremost, we are here on behalf of those people. We are not elected by a handful of out-of-state owners of large homes that are being rented for profit. We are here to represent our small town community. And therefore, I'm concerned that we will have this reputation of having a heavy hand over everybody who might rent out their casita now and then. So I'm hoping for the best, that this will be a compromise between the two.
Seeing no further comments, this is not a financial, so we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of number 3 here, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. The next item is going to be taken out of context. It's item number 11. And this is the noise and nuisance ordinance in the town, because it follows on with these last 2 agenda items. So this is the council discussion approval of first reading of ordinance 2023-05, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending chapter 130 of title 11, Roman numeral 11, entitled Noise of the town of Cave Creek Town Code, presented by the town attorney.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, there was a typo. The title should be XIII. However, the chapter 130 and the section 130.07 is correct. That error can be corrected tonight as part of the first read. This was done at your request. When we briefed you on the short-term rental, you had a concern, as did some tonight, about making sure that the nuisance ordinance could also be enforced. And so we've added a reference in the nuisance ordinance to the state statute dealing with disorderly conduct, and that's the reference to 132904. That was the only suggestion you made, and that I added. By adding it, as the marshal will tell you, the sheriff's office won't enforce your code. They will enforce state statute. So this, by embedding this, we have the sheriff's office obligated to enforce disorderly conduct. That's the only change we've made to the nuisance statute. As Councilmember Bush pointed out, the nuisance will be a penalty charged against the offender. It won't be a penalty charged against the home operator.
Okay. Questions from council?
Yeah, several places in here, we talk about, we talk about things that are primarily vehicle related. Could we change that to be vehicle, not so specifically vehicle related? For instance, mufflers are mentioned here. It'd probably be better just to talk about general noise as a problem or other kinds of things. So when we talk about it needs to be a little bit broader than just noise from vehicles. Or primarily aimed at vehicular noise. I know that was a problem a number of years ago, and that's been resolved. But this needs to be a little bit more broad brush, and it needs to be applicable to more than just the vehicular use community.
Could you give us a reference on that, Dusty?
Yeah, I just lost it.
We have 448 pages
Page
tonight.
455 about the 3A is muffler.
Yeah. That's one. B is the, unlawful for any person operating a motor vehicle to use cutout bypass, similar kinds of things. It needs to be more broad based. I don't think we can really enforce a cutout bypass or muffler elimination mechanism. That's something that the state does, but I think we can identify things that are exceeding whatever our noise level is. Because to go after those kinds of things, it's going to require somebody with some specific expertise. And I'm not sure if our marshal is capable of doing that. Not that he's not a smart guy and capable of a lot of things, but I'm not sure he's on the auto mechanic list.
Is there a response from staff on this?
Those are some examples. We have a generic land use noise over on page 455, 454. I didn't go through, I just added what you all asked me to add, and so I guess the reference to muffler, up above, we have sound trucks. I think those are specifics. We have the generic land use noise, and then we have the calibrations in terms of decibels. Yeah, but I guess the point is anybody's worried about. I guess I think they're just calling out mufflers and vehicles with sound devices as examples that could violate the noise level.
Just think it needs to be tightened up. I mean,
Yeah, this is heavily towards noise, and the state statutes I have in front of me here is disorderly conduct, which is based at an individual, not at a short-term rental. These are the guests who would be in violation of this. And it says that a person commits disorderly conduct if with intent to disturb the peace or quiet of a neighborhood, family, or person, or with a knowledge of doing so. Such person, and it gives an example of the violations. For example, uses abusive or offensive language, makes unreasonable noise. So this is a statute by which the sort of behavior we see that makes some short-term rentals obnoxious to the town. This is the one, and the sheriff can enforce this.
Statutes, yes.
So if we can get this approved, then we can work on between now and the second reading to find some language.
So I think what you're
that works.
suggesting is take some, rather than just have the reference, the sole reference to the state statute, is include some of the language from 132904 in your statute. It would be, Councilman Rhodes, it would be another, this is the decibel level. The next page gives examples. We could say, these are the kinds of things that could violate the.
perfect. Add them in.
I will bring that back for the second reading.
Okay. Other questions? There's public.
I just wonder if we realize that the decibel levels in this chart are unattainable in a developed community at all. 50 dBA is nothing.
Are we going to start a technical discussion?
No,
I don't know.
No, because I've been here and done that, 13 meetings with the same thing over and over and over again, listening to the same 30 people for 3 minutes apiece, talking about the same thing. But the numbers are not attainable.
So what do we do? I'm just.
I mean, I'm just wondering, I mean, I think this is a sleeping dog. I just as soon leave lie.
You just kicked it.
I know I did. You know, we're going to go down this road. You're going to do severe damage to a community that people come to and spend money and go home.
So we'll let that one lie then? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Other comments, questions from council? Okay, we're looking for a motion on this then.
I have public comment,
Sorry,
Public
public
comment?
comment? Excuse me.
like Haddock.
Surprise, surprise, I'm very much in favor of this. I see this as your best timely tool to be effective for the short-term rental nuisance properties. And however it's structured, it just has to include all rentals, so you're treating them all the same, and it can't be excluded that way. So I know decibel stuff is very difficult, and that has to be done right. Maybe we first have to find out what a nuisance decibel rating is in a neighborhood that annoys the neighbors, and see if we can structure it that way. But we have to have some teeth, and don't shy away. I know you're thinking that the guests, the violators, it's a waste of time to try to, give them a citation or something. Listen, I think you're missing the boat on that. These guys report back to those platforms, yay or nay, they had a good time at that rental. I call this taking the poison back to the nest. You give them a citation for the violation that's annoying these people, they're going to report it on the platform. People who rent these things read other people's reviews for the platform. Voila. And it didn't cost you any money at all. They automatically report on themselves. So don't miss that. I don't know if you can create the mechanics of making sure that the owner gets some sort of citation as well. Because I think that's paramount. You just have to. It shouldn't be that hard to find a way to knock out these guys that are making a bad name for the rest of them that are such a small minority. And you already heard my opinion on what you approved. I think this thing's got a way better way of, giving these poor folks who really need some relief, a change. It'll quiet it down, the word will get out, and I think that'll work before the 12 or the 3 violations in 12 months are going to do you any good. So I'm all for it. Let's see some good stuff that's got some teeth in.
Thank you.
Laura G.
Hello again, Laura G. So I sent my comments earlier, but just for the record, and so those in the room can hear. So this nuisance ordinance proposal, in order to make this applicable to short-term rentals and really all residential properties, the language has to be made to include all residential properties. And authority has to be given to the responding officer to act on a preponderance of evidence. Other towns' STR ordinances recognize that there's several factors that go in. So an officer can talk to several neighbors, an officer can look at any videos that might exist, an officer can use his own judgment standing at the property line. And that officer needs to be given the authority to issue citations on the spot to shut down party houses. Otherwise, the recalcitrant address is going to say, what are you going to do about it? So section C 13130.07, it's all very nice to go out with the sound meter and measure things, but that doesn't do us any good after the fact when the party's over. So that officer has to use their own judgment. That needs to be in the code somehow in section C. Section D2, this is pointed at motor vehicle sources and needs to also include residential sources. Section F, enforcement. Okay, big problem here. This only applies currently to mechanical devices and vehicular noise. Again, it needs to be more all-encompassing, which is, I think, where we're trying to go with this, which is appropriate. Stop orders, section 5. Okay, this one is written just about construction noise, written at a different time, different place, different needs. So we need to modify this or add a totally separate section, allowing the town marshal or the sheriff's office to shut down a residential nuisance at the time of the officer's initial visit to the site. So I think this ordinance, we're going in the right direction, and this will do us some good. And I have to say that over the last several months, I'm really disappointed that the town didn't seem to care enough to sit down and go through these ordinances line by line. It is filled with problems and unexpected consequences. And I could send you email after email, but no one wants to read it and no one wants to talk about these items. It's not a perception that we're unduly punishing the small operator. We are. They will read it. They will read it that way. And I find it really, really sad and short-sighted. But thank you for this nuisance ordinance. This is progress.
Thank you.
No additional speakers.
So we're at council for a motion. It's number 11 on your list. It went in the back of the agenda.
I'll make the motion. Motion to approve second reading of ordinance 02023-05, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending chapter 130 of title 11. Is that supposed to be
It should be
13?
first read and set title.
Okay,
Okay.
excuse me, then should I make that correction?
Yes.
Yeah, just make it.
Approve the first reading, and it's chapter 130 of title 13.
Yes, ma'am.
Entitled Noise of the Town of Cave Creek Town Code.
Second.
Voice vote on this. Any comments first? You had the motion.
We're going in the right direction.
We need this.
Any other comments?
I think Ms. G's comments were particularly applicable. The sheriff and or the marshal has to have the ability to shut these things down. I don't know how we put it in there, but I think that should be in there.
Yeah, and we've got 60 days until at least the short term goes into effect. I hope we have enough firepower to stop some of the abuses that are happening now within the next 60 days. Do we have the right laws to do that? Okay, this is a voice vote. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We are on to agenda item number 4, which is the council discussion approval of resolution R 2023-17, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to execute on behalf of the town a pre-construction professional services / CMR contract with FCI Constructors Incorporated regarding the redesign, remodel, and renovation of the town of Cave Creek Fire Station number 1, presented by the Community Risk Reduction Director.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Jim Ford. I'm your Community Risk Reduction Manager. I love that title. Like I said, it barely fits on my card. What I would like to do first is we're here to talk a little bit more about the fire station stuff, which has been going on since we initially made the decision to do our own fire department here. First, I'd like to introduce a few folks that are here tonight and can also help if we have additional questions. Jeff Eads is with FCI Contractors, and he's the VP of Arizona. Jeff, if you'd raise your hand when I call your name. Anthony Haverkamp is the pre-construction manager with FCI, and Gerald Adams, you met him before. He's our design professional with Proman. They're here tonight to see if there's any comments from the council. Basically, what we're doing tonight is the process of going through all of this stuff. There's basically several large steps that kind of all run together. First was the startup. As part of the startup was to purchase a property, which we did, the existing fire station. Then we got it cleaned up so it could be used in the interim time. And then it came before you here a little while ago. The dates are all on the action item request. If you have any questions, we came to you with an initial preliminary design from Perlman. So we're at about 50 to 70% of design right now. So it's time for us to go out and have pre-construction assistance on what we can get and the timing of what we can get for all the things that we need to do to remodel the fire station and bring it up to current standards. So that's the first contract that you're seeing tonight with FCI. And the proposal for that is a proposal not to help us do that, not to exceed $36,250. And what they will do is they have a timeline for us. They have contracts with they reach out to their contractors, they line up contractors ahead of time, do the interviews. We work through all of that with them as part of the town. When we complete this process, the next step will be coming to you with an actual construction contract. And it'll be with FCI, since they were our chosen company here. Just to go back to the process a little bit, we were very careful for the town's sake to follow all the state and local procurement guidelines. As an example, we did that with Perlman, with the architects, and then we did it again with the contractors. We had 6 firms that initially responded to our request for proposals. Of those 6 firms, that was narrowed down to 3 finalists. The 3 finalists actually came here to the council chambers and made in-person presentations to a committee that was constructed to meet the state guidelines. You have to have a high-level person from a contracting company that's not bidding on your town. You have to have an architect or an engineer, which we had. And then you have to have others representing the town, which was myself as the project manager. And also Chief Allen from Daisy Mountain, who assisted us with that. He does that. So we interviewed, and it was actually a very difficult decision. We had 3 very good companies, FCI, Core, and Wilmig were the 3 finalists, and it was very close. And we actually sent the committee back on extra days to go through their notes and make sure that we got what we felt was the best organization to work with the town, and that's FCI. So we entered into a draft of a contract. It's been through the attorney's office. I reached out to the other communities that have used these 3 companies and made sure I got the references to make sure that we were talking with the right people. And also I reached out to Scottsdale and Phoenix and Tempe to ask about developing this contract that's just before you, to make sure that we were doing the right thing on a remodel to use a construction manager at risk process, which is what we did. And so I'm here tonight to ask you to look at this and approve this resolution, which allows the mayor to enter into the initial contract, pre-construction contract with FCI. And I'll be willing to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions from council?
Just a comment. I've seen the drawings, the elevations, they look great, Jim. And you know that we're looking at streetscape work, trying to clean that up a little bit. So I hope that enters into the conversation, the spaces, it's part of the town entry piece, and it's great to be proud of it.
That's all part of those initial designs, and the next steps for us is to enter into this contract, get a better breakdown of the costs and timeline. We're looking at about a 10 to 12 month project. And so included in that is site work, which includes the design, the streetscape, is the remodel of the living quarters, and then the addition of the bays. So it's kind of a same thing with that. It's a phased process as we go along to make sure that we're doing it correctly. But that is all part of that design and will be part of that design.
What about a new sign? Is that in the works? They still have a banner and we've had it for years.
Yeah. Harry, can you put on your list to have me get a new sign? I would do that. I'll take care of it. I know.
With outlines, yes.
Yeah.
Of course. No question.
Yeah, we can paint over that and put up a temporary sign. We can do that. We can do that in the very first phase. I'll work with SCI. I'm sure.
Oh, good, that would be nice.
The signage will be part of the total project, yeah, but we can do something temporarily. I'm sure that, is that okay, guys? Can you help me with that? Okay. Okay.
Maybe it could be a permanent sign, but just temporarily attached to the building, so it could be moved. I mean, why do a temporary sign? That's just extra money.
And maybe not. We'll see.
Anything's better than a banner.
Yeah, I got you.
Internally lighted.
No. No lights. Right, no lights.
Yeah.
Other questions from council? There is public comment on this.
David Phelps.
By the way, that banner is donated by people that work to help bring the fire.
I appreciate the, identification. It's just time for something permanent and beautiful.
Okay, we've seen no public comment. We are ready for a motion. Item number 4.
Motion to approve resolution R 2023-17. A resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cape Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to execute on behalf of the town a pre-construction professional services / CMAR contract with FCI Constructors, Inc. regarding the redesign, remodel, and renovation of the town of Cape Creek Fire Station number 1.
Second,
Happy. This is such a wonderful thing for our community, and we're ready for it to be a permanent structure and one that accommodates the firemen and women.
I think we're gonna put together something you're gonna be proud of and the town can be proud of. So thank you for your support with this.
Councilmember Bunch.
yeah, I just want to point out that he was gone at a fire chiefs meeting last week, and now he's back and he's already spending our money again.
I won't make the same comment I made last time. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council.
Other comments from council? This is financial.
Oops. Hold on a minute. Vice Mayor Ray,
Yes.
Councilmember Alberton,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes,
Councilmember Alcamo,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. The ayes have it 7-0, so you've got your contract.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now on to, thank you, gentlemen, for attending. We're sorry you didn't get to. If I'd known, I'd let you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Presentation to council, an updated Kimley Horn pedestrian safety studies, implementation, and Y2K traffic warrant studies presented by the town engineer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Oh, there we go. I'd like to present an update on the pedestrian safety study implementation and the 2023 traffic warrants for the 3 intersections that were prepared at the council's request. I know there were several council members who were not here in 2021 when we presented.
Is Young on the call?
Yes, Young.
Would you introduce her? please?
Oh, certainly. We will be joined by Young Kropowski, who is our traffic study or traffic consultant who did the warrant studies. And she also participated in the local area safety studies with MAG. I'm presenting just a recap of the Kimley Horn studies, but Young was involved with those studies. And so we're going to go through just an update on them, on what the MAG studies were and how they're going to, and just a brief history and where we are today with them. The town was awarded the Maricopa Association of Governments Local Safety Studies in late 2019. The studies were initiated and we were just about ready to do traffic studies in March of 2020. But then this town went dark. No traffic, no pedestrians, no nothing when COVID hit. So the project was delayed. We were given the option of delaying it a year, which we did. And it was completed in April 2021 and presented to council May 3rd, 2021. And that was the phase 1 study, which had sort of a smorgasbord of different aspects. As the study was being concluded, we realized that the study itself needed to be fleshed out so that we could get identifiable projects that we could implement, and also the gravity of those projects, what order would be best to spend our money on and which one had more bang for the bucks. So the phase 2 report was completed in June 2021. And that one identified several projects
that we had, and I guess I see if I can make this work. So the summary of the pedestrian local area safety study recommendations were that we looked at the partnership with the Maricopa Association of Governments and completed a pedestrian bicycle safety study, phase 1 along Cave Creek Road between Surrey and Galloway. And as I said, the phase 1 study developed the recommendations for physical improvements that could enhance safety, improve driver compliance to speed limits and advisory infrastructure, crossing signs, bike lanes, et cetera, and improve the pedestrian visibility at crosswalks and the ultimate goal of reducing the risk of crashes involving bicyclists and pedestrians. The phase 2 study evaluated the warrants, budgets, and schedules necessary to convert the proposed concepts from phase 1 into feasible projects based on the evaluation. The projects were ranked in terms of priority, high, medium, and low. So if you look at your screens, you'll see that the high priority were RRFBs, which stand for rectangular flashing beacons, and a speed table at the roadhouse. Speed table and the RRFB at Hilltop, which is basically Kiwanis and Dairy Queen area. And then the third, the other one was a speed table at Hidden Valley. And then, which is about at the entry to town on this end of town. And then the RRFB at just an RRFB flashing beacon at the American Legion. And then the medium priorities were other RRFBs and other median configuration improvements, and the lower ones were bike lane, painting the bike lanes green and some sign upgrades. Based on the prioritization, available funding and input from the town, the following high priority projects were recommended. And those included the roadhouse. And what we did is that one of the things within the report was to do a cost benefit analysis or benefit to cost ratio. And so that just gave us the amount of, so that for $1 in cost, this is what was perceived as the return based on the number of traffic accidents, the number of pedestrian accidents, and what the true cost would be. And so the higher the number, the more return for, or more bang for the buck you have for your project. And it's also how MAG rates the projects when you're submitting for grants and applications. So our number 1 was the speed table at the Roadhouse, which had a cost benefit ratio of 6.2. Speed table at Hilltop, 4.7, and at Hidden Valley, a 2.7. MAG typically will not fund any project less than 2. In other words, double your money. The 3 projects together, because of the way that the traffic accidents can be counted, is an 8.5. So if you do all 3 of them together, it's 8.5 times, the value is 8.5 times what it cost to put it together. And then the next, I have pictures of the 3 crossings. This one is at Roadhouse. The proposal at Roadhouse. The proposal at Kiwanis, Dairy Queen, or Hilltop. And the proposal for crossing at Hidden Valley.
Could I stop you and ask a question?
Certainly.
How do these compare with the current way that the crosswalks are identified?
What these are is these are raised platforms that are about 4 inches higher than the road. So they are not really speed bumps, but they are what we call table crosswalks. So that there's a ramp up and a ramp down. And they, by that nature, they slow the speed. I think former council member Diefendorfer referred to them as the silent policeman. Because it's you can do 30, 35 over them, but you start doing 45 and they become uncomfortable.
Do drivers have any awareness that they're coming up?
Well, besides the shark teeth that we put about 40 feet back, and then the painted white lines showing that there's a raised mound coming, that's usually sufficient.
So I had actually had the pleasure of riding on some on Pacific Coast Highway last weekend. The only thing I can say is I watched a Indian motorcycle go airborne
Wow.
using the speed table. And I'm sure California drivers are every bit as cautious as our drivers here.
That good, eh?
They've had a couple beers in them, so I haven't driven the speed tables there in Leucadia and Encinitas. I'm skeptical.
The thing is that with the speed tables, normally you would not put them on an arterial such as Cave Creek. That is not normally a practice that you would do. In this case, we are down to very few options in how to control our speeds. Other than enforcement, but that's what we're trying to do with enforcement, but we tried the gateway treatments. But again, this is what was recommended by MAG as being the best bang for the buck, and that would try it. And the nice thing about the speed tables is if you don't like it, they're asphalt, they can be removed just as easily as they were put in.
Well, except that we've already paid for them, so. it would
We
be a
paid
complete
for them.
Waste of money.
I
have a question.
sure.
Mr. Rhodes, so you were on the Pacific Coast Highway
Yes,
versus 30 mph down, well,
30 miles an hour in Encinitas and Leucadia. And I watched, well, California's got the same rule that Arizona does now, and you can have motorcycles zipping between lanes of traffic. And I watched an Indian motorcycle come flinging, I was in the right lane, come flinging right by me, and that sucker was probably doing 55, 60 miles an hour. He went airborne.
and
He
this
didn't
was again
crash.
a road that the speed limit was 35 or
Yeah,
30
it's
miles.
through downtown Encinitas, or I'm sorry, downtown Leucadia. I mean, it was pretty impressive. I didn't think the motorcycle that heavy to get airborne like that. But at the same time,
What happened to the rider?
he was fine. He just bounced and then last time I saw him, he was heading towards the next in the series of bumps.
Mhm. I know that we've had some feedback from our residents about these calming devices, traffic calming devices. That's another term for them,
Yes.
correct? And some people are worried that they would affect horse trailers. Do you have an opinion on that? Or-
I would say that a speed hump, even a speed cushion, definitely a speed bump would be more impactful on horse trailers. With the nice thing about the speed table is they're wider. They're 10 to 12 feet, and they would span most, in other words, you're not going to get high centered with a wheel. A wheel will come up and a wheel will go down. So they're a little easier on that, especially if you're following the speed limit. But because of the spacing of the width of the top.
Continue. Almost.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Hal,
Microphone.
oh, thank you, sorry. I kind of want to ask you a question, but I'm not sure how I can get you to answer when it doesn't really involve engineering. I was coming through town the other day, and I saw basically 6 lanes of asphalt. We have the 2 lanes and the 2 lanes, and in front of the red truck, that former median is asphalt. And if you add the 2 bike lanes, it's pretty much comparable to 6 lanes of asphalt. And we don't really have a function in the town with staff. We've never really had it, and it's been picked at by volunteers over the years, probably to not great advantage of historic character of the community. I mean, I kind of wonder whatever happened to our 2-lane road through downtown Cave Creek, and I know change is inevitable. I understand that. But I wish we could take the genius of engineers who understand the science of using national experience to design things that truly increase pedestrian safety and have a measurable impact on people who are motorists, whether they're impaired or not. But somehow counterbalance it with what little we have left in this town that's not being urbanized. I mean, it's great to have MAG involved, but MAG, when you come up from the valley, is dealing with freeways 12 lanes wide and green crosswalks. I know California does those, but why would we paint asphalt green? I guess to draw more attention to the bike lanes. And originally the bike lanes were not supposed to be fighting for traffic space or used for parking in the town like they currently are. They were supposed to have been like a bridle path, like on Central Avenue. And, you know, the town core with all, without getting into a lengthy discussion, it's had so many iterations over the years that you can walk through the downtown corridor and see it. We went through a modernization of concrete structures and we went through some tree planting and so forth. Is there anything that you think could be done with the underlying science and engineering, but somehow tempered at a scale that just doesn't look like everywhere else Arizona and everywhere else USA? Because MAG is basically able to offer financial support and assistance, but for more urban design and more urban complacency and consistency. And I still think there's enough left in Cave Creek that's different that I wish. And all I'm asking, I guess, is that if you could put something in your mind and see it that rattles around as something else that might work with some version of this. And then I want to change my lobbying idea if that doesn't work. Why, just rhetorically, would we not look at all the available space? And what is the best design for the purpose of the commercial corridor? Obviously, ingress and egress through the town, out to the lakes, up to Carefree and so forth. But why would we not revisit maybe the fact that we used to have 2 lanes of traffic and now we have 4 and we have hardly any medians left? And could we do a version where we go back to 2 lanes of traffic and use 2 lanes or 1 lane in some alternative way? And Dusty has mentioned diagonal parking. If the goal is to slow traffic, then maybe the thing is not give people 4 lanes to race each other every time they go through a stop sign and so forth. Is there some way that you can take the science of engineering and convert it to a small community version of traffic planning and pedestrian safety that doesn't look like this? I mean, this is just an imprint of everything we see in the valley. And we're moving towards things like roundabouts and fences down the middle of the street and this, that, and the other. So could we ever get back to trees up and down both public right-of-ways in the community for shade? Certainly better identified crosswalks. Sometimes they have the raised surfaces like downtown where people, the rumble strips or whatever. But can we get back to a sense of slowing traffic by design and not by subordinating drivers and residents who live here into some form of medieval torture to be able to, I mean, the one at the state capitol, I'm sure you're familiar with that one, right in front of the House in the Senate. It's probably 75 feet long. So you actually go up and then you're on a raised platform and you go back down. And people do it very slowly because pedestrians are walking back and forth there. So certainly there's applications that make sense. But is there anything that you can come up with that would restore what we've lost in the downtown? And I'm going to maybe specifically mention some median restoration. And then I want to lobby you with this, that if you're looking for support for this, those of us that are reticent, what can we get? What can we claw back a little bit for to the character of Cave Creek in our downtown quarter? If the downtown is our living room and we want to bring people up for food and beverage and entertainment and retail and art galleries and all the other things, special events and so forth. And one day I want to lobby the mayor about maybe doing a bond for parking in the community and have 2 or 3 levels underground, but do like Scottsdale where you've got open sunlight coming in with the design and then using the surface for farmers markets or special events or those types of things. Is there anything else we can do to lobby you to be consistent with the mission you've been given, but to do it in a way that has a more proportional scale to the town?
We have looked, one of the studies looked at what they call road diet, where you actually take 1 lane out. The problem is it changes the level of service of the road so badly that it creates a negative impact. So we are looking at that. The other problem that we have, Vice Mayor, sorry, I'll get again, Councilman Ogden. I was flashing back too far. Was that we have a problem with right of way. We don't have, for the size road, we really don't have a lot.
Lower the transfer road.
And so we are trying to utilize what we have for the bike lanes, the medians, the lanes that we have available, And right now, we're trying to figure out how we're going to get pathways and trying to get easements to put in the pedestrian pathways that are necessary to interconnect this town.
Mr. Mayor, how could you, without getting $1 million of changes, is there a way where, and we talked before, Ernie and others, where you have 2 lanes for traffic and then 2 lanes for diagonal parking and or special events, and then those 2 lanes would be closed off and allow pedestrians, strollers, bicycles and things like that? I mean, is there any way to take what we currently have and use it in a more modified way? We always used to have 2 lanes through town. And now we have a 4-lane divided highway, and without the medians, people are turning, I mean, you know all this, but.
Yeah, we can certainly have it looked at. Councilman, we could, we could get I'll talk with the manager and see if we can get a study implemented to look at options such as that.
I mean, median restoration is a great start, median cleaning up and so forth, but. If we can sweeten the deal for those who would like to see the downtown restored to something that. It hasn't been since antiquity because we didn't have the traffic trips we currently have. But if we can eventually get to consistent lighting. Shades, ramadas, public restrooms, maybe someday underground parking, whether it's free or not. If we're going to urbanize, can we do it in a way that's more attractive or more scale to what we think is still a small town? I know it probably isn't, but if we can fake it. Because really, if you go to historic communities around the country in Canada, New England, California, places like that, there's a lot of creative things that are done with surface paving structures. I mean, what not Nob Hill maybe in Boston or things like that, but you can take existing design and repattern with materials and other things that at least come back to some type of historical flavor for the community. You know.
Yes, we can certainly look at that.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, for your time.
Could I ask one question? Do we have a current traffic count?
The current traffic count, I didn't bring it with me. We had new counts done as for the traffic warrant studies. As far as the amount, it is up in the over 20,000 a week type of counts that we have, but less than 10,000 vehicles a day. Which is a couple of the warrants that Young can talk about. And maybe when I'll finish my little spiel and then I'll let Young give you the traffic warrant and she can answer that question.
I was wondering if she might also have an opinion on Tom's suggestions or thoughts.
Young, did you hear that conversation?
Yes, I did. To answer the question about the traffic counts on Cave Creek Road, Mayor Morris and Council, I'm Young Kaprowski with Y2K Engineering. To answer the question about the traffic counts on Cave Creek Road, they are about 13,000 vehicles per day. In regards to the comments about a roadway reconfiguration to 2 lanes, that would be within a threshold of a potential roadway reconfiguration. Just at a high planning level. The trade-off is the cost and the timeline for design and construction for the vision that was just described. So it is possible, but it would take additional study and funding to accomplish that.
Except that it's my recollection that that was one of the options that you gave us a couple of years ago.
Yes, it was. That's we called it I think it was referred to in the MAG studies as a road diet or something like that, where it would go to 1 lane and then make it so that one of the lanes could be used for parking and during heavy events, it could be opened back up. But most of the time it was going to be, so that was one of the options, but it wasn't, again, it wasn't one of the preferred options because of its impact.
I think it was cost prohibitive.
It was.
But since it's already been, looked at, it might not hurt to just kind of revisit it and see what it said.
Yes.
I have a kind of the same opinion that the vice mayor had, that recalling back that study, the big perspective is that people are getting hurt at too high a rate. And the number 1 priority has got to be safety.
Correct.
Now we can we ought to do everything we can to move traffic. We ought to do everything we can to make the town better and more livable. But the primary, humans getting hurt is the top priority of all the jobs that we do. Every option, and that study had a number of options.
Yes.
That you have not presented here tonight, and some of the new council people probably do not have that background. Narrowing the lanes, bring the lanes down so that it's inconvenient to drive through town at high speeds. And there were two factors: the speed and getting people across the street safely were the two factors. And so the speed tables won out against the other options because we didn't think we could get traffic through town. With parallel parking was, as I recall, was the proposal that was presented in that first study. My personal thought was that, well, now you're going to have people jaywalk, and they're going to be jaywalking from behind a parked car. And your sight distances for avoiding pedestrians is going to be worse. The other number I remember was there was a 45% projected improvement in pedestrian safety from the speed tables.
Yes. And that
So-
was that was because of the speed, the change in speed. Right now, I believe the last count that we had, the 85th percentile speed was somewhere, and Young, please correct me if I get the number wrong. I believe the 85th percentile was around 43 miles an hour is what I refreshed in the study. And that, so that means that 15% are going over that and 85% are going less than 43 miles an hour. But again, this is a posted 30 mile an hour with a, when MAG designed, or when Maricopa McDOT designed it, it was a 35 mile an hour design speed. So it's not really a safe speed, but that's what they're performing.
Yeah, so I mean, every proposal that I saw made it more inconvenient to drive. Every single one. Narrower speed tables, stop signs, the whole works made it to make drivers slow down, to make it less comfortable because lanes are narrower. You've got 2 lanes rather than 4. That was one of the proposals, was 2 lanes rather than
Yes.
4. I'm not sure you can get 13,000 cars a day on, especially since they're not driving at 2 a.m. in the morning. They're driving, they 11 o'clock. and
That's
5
part of the
o'clock.
problem, is that it becomes what we refer to as level of service. And I believe the level of service would of the road would equally drop, especially during the high times.
Yeah. So I just think we have to keep it, I mean, we're gonna have multiple criteria. We have the design scope. We have to make people get safely across the street. We have to have drivers driving at a safe speed. We have to get a number of cars through town, and we have to make the town livable, as Councilmember Hogerton brought out, and improve it all the time. So this is going to be a balancing act of different priorities
Correct.
in the end. And
I do have a question, Mayor. When they widen Carefree Highway to 4 lanes over to Tom Darlington, Scottsdale, some of the traffic should be alleviated coming through town. Right now, we have 4 lanes, correct? And they
We have 4, sometimes 6 lanes, depending on where you are on Carefree Highway. And then immediately goes down to 2 as soon as you get through the intersection.
If you ever watch traffic going out to Lake Bartlett, that's coming from like Desert Hills, they all go through town rather than going through Carefree Highway and down through Tom Darlington. And I just think that once the state widens that to 4 lanes, it might make a difference as far as our traffic flows.
Actually, it's going to be City of Scottsdale that's going to be widening it.
Scottsdale is going to be widened.
Scottsdale's widening it.
I thought it was a state that was doing it. Okay, even better. When is Scottsdale going to do it?
They are now, I believe, starting initial design on the widening from 56th Street on. They sent me a concept which we sort of laughed at because they wanted to put a roundabout at Cave Creek Road, and and Carefree Highway, and we said, no, that's not your jurisdiction, and I don't think we want that.
Mayor, if I may. I personally don't have any issue with people who are going multiple miles an hour over the speed limit, hitting a speed table and knocking their fillings loose. They'll only do it once. I'd rather see behavior modification through whatever we can do physically, as opposed to bouncing pedestrians off of vehicles in the crosswalks.
Yeah, the survivability for a pedestrian at 30 miles an hour is about 10 times greater than at 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, I had those figures at one of the meetings once. I don't remember them now. You know, it was pretty impressive. But difference between 25, 30 and 35 and 40. 40, I believe, was like 10% of the people actually survive if they got a solid tread on hit. That's pretty scary.
It is.
Okay, where are we?
Okay, we are on, let's go back, let's see. We are on the town applied for grants, in other words, recent and current. Let me go to the next one. I think. There we go. So the town applied for MAG for 3 recommended projects that exceeded the minimum cost ratio of 2.0. We applied for 470,000 in grants from MAG, with the town committing to the design costs for our share of the funding. The town was not successful this time, but we feel if we go ahead with the design and have it, I think as the government used to refer to them, shovel ready, then we will stand a better chance of getting funding. They awarded 5 projects and we were number 6 on one of them, so we were close.
But we've
Out of-
gotten it twice, haven't
We have, well, for the MAG study, this was for the actual construction costs for doing the different speed tables. And we weren't going to go ahead with any construction until we could check on funding. And it's the RRFBs that are the expensive part. The speed tables are about 10 to 15,000 a piece. The RRFBs are 100 and about 100,000 a piece, 100 to 150,000 a piece to put in. So those flashing beacons and the signalization is what the expensive part is. So any more questions on the MAG studies that we had in the past? And if not, then we'll go on to the traffic warrant studies that were requested April 10th by this council. At that time, the council requested a review of signalization at the intersections of Cave Creek Road and Schoolhouse, Cave Creek Road and Spur Cross Road, and Cave Creek Road and Rancho Manana Boulevard. And so on April 12th, we engaged Y2K Engineering, and we asked them to prepare an update on the, it says 2018, but it was actually a 2017 warrant study that was done for Cave Creek Road and Schoolhouse. And we also included the other 2 intersections. And so the warrant studies are considered the best practice for determining when and where traffic signalization changes are required. And they consider traffic impacts of streets involved, traffic accidents over the last 5 years, peak hour traffic volumes, and impact of level of service on the intersection. And so the 3 intersections we looked at were Cave Creek Road, Schoolhouse Road, which is currently a 4-way stop with flashing beacons. Cave Creek Road and Schoolhouse Road, which is just a stop on Schoolhouse. Excuse me, that should be Spur Cross. And then Cave Creek Road and Rancho Manana Boulevard, which is just a local stop on Rancho Manana Boulevard. And with that, I will turn it over for the results to Young to give you the results that she had. And if you could bring up her presentation, please. There you go. Go ahead, Young.
Thank you, Hal. Good evening, Mayor Morris and Town Council members. As I mentioned, my name is Young Kaprowski with Y2K Engineering. Next slide.
Oh, I've got it right here. There we go.
Great.
Whoops, I went too one. There you go.
So as Hal introduced, we conducted studies for these 3 intersection locations within the town. Next slide. At the intersection of Schoolhouse Road and Cave Creek Road, this is currently an all-way stop. It does meet a traffic signal warrant, which is a combination of warrants 1A and 1B. The fact that the intersection meets warrants based on traffic volumes does not, it's in itself, warrant a traffic signal. The existing level of service operations are adequate, with the current average delay at the intersection for the always stop control being 19 seconds per vehicle, level of service C. And if there was a traffic signal, the average delay would be estimated at 14 seconds per vehicle, or level of service B. However, in review of other factors, there have been 6 crashes in 5 years, but none of these crashes would have been correctable by a traffic signal, and none resulted in serious injury. The current operations with the flashing red beacons is working well, and only minor maintenance is recommended, and the installation of a traffic signal is not recommended at this time. Next slide. At the intersection of Spur Cross Road and Cave Creek Road, we evaluated whether an always stop is warranted, and it is not warranted based on current traffic volumes. There was a question earlier about the traffic volumes along Cave Creek Road, and that being just under 13,000 vehicles per day. There have been 5 crashes in the past 5 years at this intersection. One resulted in a serious injury involving a bicyclist, and both the bicyclist and the vehicle were operating correctly in their lanes. The existing level of service operations are adequate. We do recommend keeping the existing minor street stop control, but we have a couple of recommendations to enhance the safety and operation at the intersection. The image on the bottom left illustrates how one option could restripe the crosswalk closer to the roadway. The stop bar is currently about 35 feet north of the travelway on Cave Creek Road, which is farther than normal. That's about 2 car lengths. So currently a vehicle would have to stop at the stop bar and then likely pull forward again and stop before pulling out into the lane when it was safe. That is one option, but that would take some additional reconstruction of the existing walkway and connection to that crosswalk. The second option is to restripe the crosswalk where it is today, but then provide drivers and cyclists with additional pavement markings that delineate the edge of the roadway and that bike lane, and the potential for the conflict between the turning vehicles and cyclists. We also are recommending stop ahead pavement markings on the southbound approach. This is a low-cost systemic safety countermeasure that could be implemented town-wide, but just gives drivers additional advanced warning of that stop. And we also recommend replacing and upgrading the size of that existing stop sign for Spur Cross. Next slide. The intersection of Cave Creek Road and Rancho Mañana Boulevard was not warranted for an always stop. There have been 2 crashes in the past 5 years. No serious injury, but there was a possible injury involving a cyclist. Again, the cyclist and the motor vehicle, which was a northbound left turn and a southbound cyclist, they were in their proper lanes, but did collide. The existing level of service operations are adequate. And at this intersection, we are recommending to actually paint the stop bars, the crosswalk on the northwest side of Cave Creek Road, and upgrading the size of the stop signs as well. And again, having the stop ahead pavement marking in advance of the approach from the west. The green conflict markings in the bike lanes are also intended to delineate the travel way and bring attention to motorists and cyclists that the conflict exists between turning vehicles at this intersection. These are all suggestions and recommendations, and we've provided the summary in the different warrant studies along with the costs, which are low-cost improvements for these safety enhancements. Next slide. That's the overall summary of our study, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about any one of these intersections or the recommended improvements.
Questions from council? I have one question is, I was surprised at the low number of preventable accidents. You know, a couple preventable accidents at each of the three locations. How does that fit with your experience in evaluating situations like this, intersections like this?
Overall, these intersections have a very good safety record. The crashes that are typically preventable by a traffic signal would be left turn crashes and angle crashes. And what was experienced was primarily single vehicle. There was a vehicle that ran off the road. There was a vehicle that hit an animal. So overall, you have good crash experience at these intersections. Another consideration for the installation of a traffic signal is that a traffic signal is likely to increase rear end collisions. So although rear end collisions usually have less injury, if left turn and angle crashes are not being experienced today with serious injuries, that did contribute to our recommendations of not installing the always stop or the traffic signals.
Thank you. Other questions from council?
I have a comment, Bob.
Yeah, good.
Hal, I really appreciated what Tom said about just having another look at it. And as we visit around the country, you know, every town has their little method of trying to calm the traffic and direct the traffic. And it really does seem like this system of warrants and the analysis that we're hearing here is just sort of how we do it. And I'd just really like to encourage you looking at other ways to do it and have that conversation. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. We certainly will.
Do we have a price tag on the current considerations?
Right around $400,000 to $470,000 for the 3 crosswalks and RRFBs.
And my question is then, how much in-person traffic control would we get for $475,000?
You mean from a standpoint of
Additional sheriffs.
additional sheriffs?
I mean, that's always an option.
For how many years?
That's right. How many years?
You know, in other words, if you,
200,000 for one officer with a vehicle
yes,
each year.
Well, Mayor, Vice Mayor, there's a cost for the vehicle and then the salary would be annually.
So.
And then just the maintenance.
So
of the
round
vehicle.
figure is 200,000. 250 for one car and one person.
But I think you'd still have to put the lights in. I mean, they're not going to be down at the crosswalk at the roadhouse at 11 o'clock at night when the bull riding's done.
Right. I guess that's two different things. It's speeding versus pedestrian.
yes, it's
walkway.
being, the RRFBs are straight pedestrian safety. The platforms, which is about 45,000 for the three of them, would be the speed control.
So we could put the crosswalks in with the lighting and stuff and take care of the pedestrian issue.
Correct.
But then we still have the speeding issue and the severity of the of a pedestrian car
Yes,
crash. Yeah.
because these RRFBs will not modify the speed of the traffic, much like where the silent policeman will tend to slow it down.
Other questions?
Except that we also thought that those white sticks were going to control vehicular
Let's not-
travel speeds.
Let's not go there.
And boy, we never heard the end of that. So I can.
We
imagine
gave it a
what we're
try.
gonna hear with
We
this.
gave it a try. It was a recommended gateway effect that we gave an effort to. So I would like to thank Young for making the presentation.
Yes, I
Yeah,
would too. Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
Thank you, Young.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anybody, any other comments from council? We'll take public comment on this.
David Phelps.
Good evening, everybody. David Phelps, Cape Creek resident. I was particularly wanting to see the analysis for the Rancho Manana Boulevard. When I got the report and realized that it was a one-day traffic study after basically our season had ended at Easter, I was a little bit perplexed as to how we're going to find the validity in our study if we're always going to be looking at traffic on Wednesday and not during bike week or not during peak times when we really have the intensities like on Friday evening and Sunday afternoon when people are trying to make a left out of Rancho Manana and go north. So I talked to somebody that did analysis work, statistics. And the right way to do the analysis is to put the stop signs in and see what your results are. And you take a year to do that. I don't think we're going to be able to do that in our little town. But it just kind of shows you the difference between how people can look at a situation and how they can come up with the recommendations they do. So for our one-day study, putting paint on the ground in different places for the bike lanes and the crosswalk, does it actually slow the 43-mile-an-hour speed average for the people that are coming out of the, what I call the slingshot of the Spur Cross Road, Cave Creek Road intersection? And I think common sense will tell you, no, that's not going to slow anybody down. So I think we're back to something like the speed tables to try to slow people down. And we have to look beyond the answer of stop signs because of the analysis telling us, yeah, if you stop somebody there, they're going to go twice as fast to get to the next stop sign or the next speed regulator down the street. We're not winning that way. So I have to agree with part of the analysis done by here and part of the advice, because part of it is science and opinion. And the science tells us that our nature is that when you slow us down a little bit here, if we know we feel late, we're going to go even faster to the next spot. So while I'm disappointed that we're not going to try to regulate the speed with stop signs, I understand why. I would still be recommending the stop signs and pulling them out after we find out they work or they don't work. I maintain that the one monument sign that we had done there at we had the monument sign removed. I think speed was a factor with that. There was a vehicle that had a malfunction, but I think speed was a factor. I think if that guy had been coming off of the stop sign right there, we'd probably still have our monument sign. The idea that when you need to have a balance of traffic coming from all four directions, to warrant stop signs, where you need to have accidents to warrant stop signs, is a little bit cockeyed to me, because that would tell me that we're not really qualified to have the four-way stop at Schoolhouse, where they have just a little bit of traffic coming off the hill at Schoolhouse, but a lot of traffic coming southbound at Schoolhouse. So see, Schoolhouse almost seems like it qualifies for a three-way stop, but maybe not a four-way stop. So this stuff really is complex when it comes down to trying to get all the decisions correct. I thank you, Hal, for your due diligence. I know this can't be easy. This is year 13 on this study. Year 3. But I know this is going to be a no-win situation to put in the speed tables. I know just having your front end aligned is an expense, and people with horse trailers and motorcyclists are probably not going to be happy with it. So still looking for a solution to slow people down. Would like to know more about the results of ticketing people. Is that working? Do we think we're actually dropping 43, the average speed of 43 and the 30 down by ticketing people?
The latest numbers were in the 30s, high 30s.
So
Ones I
it's
saw
starting
on
to
the-
work. It's starting to work,
Maybe
hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
some very prominent people who've gotten tickets. And thankfully it wasn't me, just in case there's any, not yet at least. Hal, anything else? Thank you.
Not on that one. I think I'm on the next.
Oh, you're on the next one too. Okay. Item number 6, the council discussed approval of a T-Mobile lease renewal for 5 years, commencing July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2028.
Okay, Mayor and Council, this is a lease renewal. It's been, I think it began with Western Cellular about 20 years ago. It's just they go through 5-year periods. This site is over by the Shell gas or the Chevron gas station at the southwest corner of Cape Creek and Carefree Highway. And we've changed the, we have a proposal for renewing it for 5 years at $7,500 per year.
Questions from council? Hearing no questions, public comment?
No
Yes,
public comment.
Public comment on this. No public comment, so we're looking for a motion. I'll make it. Motion to approve the T-Mobile lease renewal for 5 years, commencing July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2028.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
excuse me. That's financial. We gotta do it real quick.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Royer,
Yes.
Councilmember Augerton,
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcamo,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Item number 7 is council consideration of possible approval of the purchase of a public works utility vehicle and a wastewater service vehicle as part of the general fund replacement program for an amount of $195,000. It's amazing what vehicles cost today.
Yes, it is. Mayor, members of council, we have 2 vehicles. One is budgeted to replace a 2007 vehicle that we have that sat idle for about 6 or 8 weeks because we got a quote back for $12,000 to do the repair on it. One of our public works guys who also does repair was able to get it back and running and serviceable, at least now, little baling wire and duct tape for about $1,000. But we need to replace it. And right now, we have $125,000 in the budget for that item. And what we were asking for is your approval for the full amount for that vehicle and the $70,000 for the full amount, because what we're finding is when you go in with a government contract, because that's what you want to buy it at, if the vehicle is there, great. If the vehicle's not there, I mean, if you have to wait to get council approval, we're finding that they're gone and we can't get the vehicle. So we're asking you to authorize the amount so that when we find the vehicle, we're able to go in and buy it at the rate that when we use the state contract to buy the vehicles.
Okay, question from council. See, there's two vehicles here, right?
There are two vehicles, one for the public works to replace the slow truck, as we like to refer to it, and one to replace the vehicle that's used by the wastewater department. I was asked to put that one on the same agenda item.
So we're looking for questions from council. Seeing none, public comment?
None.
None. So we're looking for a motion.
Oh, maybe. You go ahead.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Motion to approve purchase of public works utility vehicle and wastewater service vehicle as part of the general fund fleet replacement program for amount up to $195,000.
Second.
Comments?
Yeah, I know that we lost out before because we had vehicles we were trying to buy and they sold them by the time you got the approval. I mean, I don't normally like this, but it makes a lot of sense in this business atmosphere we have today with vehicles.
Agree, since I was just in the market for my own car, and there's not too many out there, and those that are out there are very expensive, so good luck finding one through the state.
Well, it's the state contract,
Did
yes.
you look at the new Tesla pickups that are coming offline?
No, but that's not one we were looking at. We're looking for like an F-350 diesel.
We got a charging station out here, never seen anybody use.
Comments from council? None. Seeing none?
Vice Mayor Ray,
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Algerton.
Aye.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcama,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. We're on item number 8. Council
Thank you, Mayor.
discussion and approval of resolution R 2023-18. A resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to execute on behalf of the town a construction manager at risk CMAR contract with MGC Contractors Incorporated regarding the water system interconnect with the city of Phoenix, presented by the utility director, Sean, who's in front of us now on video.
Evening, Mayor and Council. I apologize for not being there in person. Today was a travel day, coming back from a small vacation. So as indicated in title, this is a continuation of our interconnect project to create a water interconnect with the city of Phoenix. Quick background, the town purchased a site for this facility a few years ago, and we engaged with Black and Veatch engineers to do the design a few years ago. They're at the point where we thought that the best way to proceed forward for this contract, because of the nuances of what's the different work areas, the pre-procurement is going to have to get done, is to use a construction manager at risk. This is similar to the contracting mechanism that Jim brought forward as far as the work that's going to get done on the new fire station improvements project. Basically, we go through a request for qualifications and we get project proposals from contractors. So we're not basing selection on pricing. What we're doing is we're basing on qualifications. We're trying to get the best qualified contractor to complete the work. So we did this actually back in December is when we started the process on this. We've delayed a little bit because we wanted to work on getting the whiff of funding put in place. But we're working, the action for you tonight is to award a contract with MGC Contractors. They were the ones that the selection committee thought was the best group for us to move forward with. We had 3 firms in total submit on the project. We moved forward to interviews with 2. We actually, similar to Jim's project, we had a selection committee consisting of a contractor's representative who was not someone who was not going to bid on the project. We had our design engineer, Black and Veatch engineers involved, and then we actually had Bill Manley actually sat on the committee for us, and we actually had someone from the city of Peoria, their utilities engineering manager, and myself. Hal Marin actually helped with the early proposals, but was not part of the interview panel. But moving forward, we thought that the panel thought that MGC would be the best contractor to complete this scope of work. It's not just the work at the interconnect site. And that's where we think the complications comes in, is we're bringing a new water supply into Phoenix. We also have to disconnect our water system. And then we're also removing a pressure reducing valve in Cave Creek Road, and we're making improvements to our Neary facility. So we got multiple little work areas. One of the advantages of, one of the things that we'll get out of this pre-construction services is they'll review the constructability and biddability of the design that Black & Veatch has put together right now. Black & Veatch is at a point where they have not made submittals to the regulatory bodies. So we have some time to make some amendments. We can look to see where the pricing is. And they're also going to give us a lot of feedback on what we need to do moving forward with purchasing for the project. I'm still hearing that we could be over 12 months on getting the equipment, the larger pumps, and electrical equipment that we need for this project. So after the pre-construction services scope is done, what MGC will do is, and we'll come back to council, is to award a construction manager a risk. We're currently thinking it may be 2, because we may have them come and ask to do a pre-purchase. So that allows them to authorize to get the pumps and motors and electrical gear purchased before we finalize design, or we might just do 1 GMP. We haven't decided that. The contract allows us both options. Before I go much further, I can't see in the audience, but Randy Gates, who's the president of MGC, was supposed to be in attendance tonight also. And I apologize, I can't see him in the audience.
He's here.
Okay. So yeah, with that, we're asking council to award this. Again, we're continuing with the design with Black & Veatch. We actually do have a change order. We'll probably be coming back with Black & Veatch Design Scope Services in the next month or 2. And then we'll also have the next action for council will be with engaging with MGC. We'll be coming back with the GMP, either 1 or 2, depending on again what MGC recommends that we move forward with on the project. This is the entire goal of this is to get a connection to the city of Phoenix. It does not replace the town's need to provide water treatment for the town. The interconnect site provides about, when constructed, will provide about half the summer demands for the system, but it gives greatly increases the system reliability. Right now, if we have an outage on the CAP pipeline, or if we have a major issue with the water treatment plant, or even with our NERI facility, because all the water from the water treatment plant must pass through the NERI facility before it enters the distribution system. Any issues at any of those 3 sites is critical for us. Having interconnect with the city of Phoenix gives us a little more breathing space. And then in the wintertime, the interconnect, another great advantage of it, it actually allows us to take some of those facilities out of service and do major improvements and or maintenance on them without having to deal with a live system. So I think this will be a game changer for the town system. It's something after being here over 4 years, I'm very much looking forward to for that extra reliability and our ability to run the system more efficiently. So with that, I can answer any questions. Again, this is just a pre-construction phase of the work, which gives them the monies to look at the constructability, get all the pricing together, and then come and present us with a detailed guaranteed maximum price proposal and schedule for the project.
Questions from council? Seeing none, we have public comment on this.
David Phelps.
So we're ready for a motion.
I'll make it. Go right ahead. It's up your alley.
I've been working on this for 8 years. So a motion to approve resolution R 2023-18, a resolution of the mayor and town council of town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to execute on behalf of the town a construction manager at risk, CMAR, contract with MGC Contractors Incorporated regarding the Phoenix water system interconnect with the city of Phoenix for an amount of $181,933.
Second.
Like I said, the first ideas I heard about this were on the Water Advisory Committee back in those 2015 or so, when I was on that committee. And I think this is one of the best things we advocated for the town. It's a pleasure for me to see it coming because it's going to be a game changer for the reliability of the town. And the town without water is unlivable. So it's super important. Second.
I had the second. Yeah. Our mayor has been working on this for 8 years, so it's got to be good.
Others? Good go.
Did I hear him say we were going to buy equipment early
But that's on the next.
on the next phase? As soon as possible, being in building industrial equipment that utilizes motors and that type thing, it's really smart in this environment to do that.
Others?
Mayor, Councilmember, yeah.
Okay, this is financial.
Councilmember Bunch,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcamo,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Rhodes,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Roy,
Yes.
Councilmember Augerton,
Aye.
Mayor Morris.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. So we're on to item number 9. Council discussion approval of first reading of ordinance 2023-06, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending the town of Cave Creek Town Code Title 5, Public Works, Chapter 52, Water Sections 52.031, Waste of Water, failure of customer to make repairs to pipes, valves, and there's a typo, it should be fixtures. 52-406, rates and charges for water service in the combined Cave Creek and Desert Hills service areas established. 52.501 drought management response procedure, 52.999 penalty and town code title Roman numeral 15 land usage, chapter 151 building regulations, section 151.15 public works code. That's the longest one I've ever read, I think. Presented by the utilities director.
I think you should make the motion too, since you're so good.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We also have Michelle Van Quathen, who actually helped us draft most of this language on the meeting with us. This is a follow-up continuation, and we have a small presentation on this from the June 19th meeting where we actually presented all of these proposed changes. And they're being put out. You want next slide, Brian? They're being proposed to help us implement the drought management plan that the town council approved last year. So Cave Creek is unique in that we rely very heavily on our CAP water supply, Central Arizona Project, or Colorado Rivers water supplies. With the amendment that happened with the transfer of the Carefree, that new number is 2,228 acre feet of Colorado municipal and industrial water allocation that we have. We do have some groundwater wells. We're looking at that. We're actually looking to bring some of them online. We're actually in the middle of doing wrapping up, getting close to completing the integrated master plan, and doing something with our groundwater supplies is something that's something we're seriously considering trying to bring online. We do run the two different water systems. We run the Cave Creek system and we run the Desert Hills system. Desert Hills does have 3 operational wells, but they can produce less than half the water needs for the customers out there. Just over 2 years ago, we completed a new non-Indian agricultural. We've shortened that to NIA subcontract for Colorado River Water, this 386 acre feet. Ironically, this year we were not able to get the full allocation. The first shortage that the town has experienced in Colorado River Water was actually on the NIA supplies that we had purchased for Desert Hills. That was a 25% reduction this current calendar year. With the anticipation we'd probably only be able to order half of that water next year. So in 2021, the town looked at a water resource policy. That was the policy allowed us to look at how we can make sure that we can provide water to our current customers. And that also placed a limit on new services outside the town's municipal limits. So the town doesn't control the growth in our Desert Hills areas, the areas outside our municipal limits. So with that action, we have reduced the new connections in the Desert Hills portion of the system to those customers that have current contracts with the town. That does not mean will serve letters, it's just contractual obligations with the town. And since 2021, we've actually also moved ahead with water storage and water recharge. The town does have a intergovernmental agreement with the city of Phoenix that allows us to do some recharging with them. But actually it's been more beneficial for us to actually work with the CAP staff and use their facilities and recharge in their facilities. So we've been generating new water resources and moving ahead. That's next slide, Brian. Those are only short term. I look at it, we have to look at the big picture as as the shortage continues on the Colorado River, there's more potential impacts to the Cave Creek customers. We are in good shape right now, but I can't continue to say that moving forward. And that's really what the drought management plan was put in place to actually discuss. We've also had a lot of infrastructure changes in the water system. We've had the disconnect of the 500 plus Carefree customers. The final disconnects are working their way through. In total will be 550, which is about 18% of the Cave Creek water customers will be transferred to Carefree's water system. And we do have the upcoming connection with the city of Phoenix, which is, as indicated before, is going to be, I think, a game changer for the reliability of the overall water system. It doesn't bring new water resources to the town, but it gives us a new piece of physical infrastructure to allow us to deliver water. Next slide, Brian. So in 2022, we worked with council through a number of meetings, and we developed and approved what we refer to as the water storage and drought plan. That was approved by resolution in November 21st, and it lists some distinct measures of how we could try to protect and ensure the town's water supplies. We do anticipate there'll be future water shortages. So this document really tied us together more specifically to the town's water resources. Past documents, even a lot of other jurisdictions, they tie themselves more to, say, the tiered shortages on the Colorado River. Well, while we actually have a lot of we're tied largely to the Colorado River supplies, ours is a little bit more unique. So we developed some specific tiers outages where it's the staff looking at and coming to council on at least an annual basis, talking about where our supplies look and the forecast for next year for deliveries and what our customers are going to need. And we develop tiers based on that. So it's not directly tied to the cap shortages, but that's one of the factors, but we're actually factoring in other specifics to the Cave Creek system. Next slide, Brian. So what we outlined at the June 19th meeting was these specific code changes that are before you tonight. I'm not sure of the process. Carrie, do we have to actually read them all into code, or just have to do a summary of them at this point? They're outlined in the ordinance and specifics. I was just going to plan on going through. Pardon, what was that, sorry?
Just a summary.
Okay. Yeah, so we can just do a quick summary of our suggested changes. Again, Michelle was very instrumental in helping us draft this. It ran through Bill Sims also to make sure that we're in conformance with what we're doing on. So the first changes proposed are 52.013, waste of water. We wanted to change the text a little bit about making sure that it's clarified that the wastewater, it's not just the wasting of the water that we're trying to prevent. It's actually, there's also a penalty to that, which is that we want people to pay for that wasting of water. So that was just more of a clerical throughout the document in that case, in that sections. And then we changed section F. There was a provision for us to impose civil sanctions against that. We tied it back to town code. We thought that was better. There already is civil sanctions listed in town code in section 10.99. We thought that was better. If you read through most of the utility code sections 50, 51, and 52, they actually typically tie it back to a section town code section 10.99 already. So that seemed to be a good cleanup. In 52.406 rates and charges, we're trying to highlight the fact that there is an impact to this for water conservation, and it allows for section D is this the newest revision to that section of the water shortage surcharges. What it is not doing is setting a specific surcharge. What it is doing is allowing town council to do a future action after presented with information from staff that we're in a situation where we need to we've gone as far as we think we can with voluntary conservation, but that another step in helping us to secure the water supplies for all customers is to actually do surcharges. So those higher water uses to try and not only encourage them but penalize them with a higher water rate. Outside of doing a water rate study itself, we believe this language allows town council to authorize that at a future date without having to go through a full rate study in the future. So that's fairly significant. I think most other jurisdictions, Michelle, you can chime in, are looking at or have some similar languages in their policies also, so that they don't have to go through a rate study in the future, but they can impose if the water shortages becomes a situation that's severe enough that they can try to financially incentivize people by making the water more expensive to try and conserve water resources for all. 52501 is the most extensive changes you'll see there. And that's where we tried to really pull together the information that came out of the drought management plan that was adopted. And this is really trying to talk to the different stages. It's talking through the process of what I will do as a utilities director through the town manager, bring forward to council to talk about where our water resource projections are for the upcoming year, or if it's more severe than that on a more frequent basis. And then then defining that as what we would respond to as response stages, voluntary measures being the first. We're always in a voluntary measure. We call that stage 0. We're always going to go out and try and promote people to be more water conscious. I see that as an extension of what we're trying to do with our metering upgrade project in Cave Creek Water. We're going to try to upgrade to an AMI metering system, which will give people more real-time data on their water usage, so that if someone has a leak, they're not waiting for us to send them a water bill, which could be 6 months after the leak started, or 6 weeks, sorry, after the leak started. Then we get into more voluntary measures, stage 2 through voluntary measures, stage 3, and then all the way up through our stage 4, which is when, if we're at stage 4, we're in a very severe situation where we're anticipating we have a significant shortage in our ability to provide water to our existing customers without those customers actually restricting it. So again, this section is really put forward to try and just document what's in the drought management plan that was already passed by resolution by the council. 52999 penalty and administrative sections. That was, we were adding, again, better defining what we can do as staff to move this forward. Again, most of that text you'll see in the ordinance, it better defines what we can do. And one thing that we've looked at is the installation of potentially flow restrictors. If we have customers that are unwilling to work with us in the future, unwilling to participate in cutting their usage, the town can look at, and this would be, a very extreme case of adding a flow restrictor on a meter. What that would do would limit the amount of water that can flow through that meter to more just what's needed for domestic usage. So if someone was not willing to reduce their outdoor water use or other large water users they have, we could use that as a method. That's the extreme. I'm hopeful with education and outreach, we can really get people on board with the idea of doing voluntary measures, but being that this has to be a town code that allows us to enforce things, that this is why it's in here. So we don't anticipate using this, but we have to have the ability to use this. That's why we needed to do this amendment to town code to give us that authority, and more so to allow town council to give us that direction in the future and authority in the future. We also talked about a violation procedure and how people could, through administrative sanctions, how that would work. I think Mr. Sims brought up before, again, this sort of the carrot and the stick type of effect, but being a town code, we have to have both in there. So we have to have the ability to require people. So that's what the largest changes are in 52999. And the last one is more of administrative cleanup in code. Section 151-15 public work codes. There was a reference as we were going through this, there was a reference to Maricopa County Associations of Governments Standard Construction Code 1997 edition. So that's just more of a cleanup. It's really the most current. Those codes and standards are usually updated on an annualized basis. So we, through this process, we saw this and we wanted to present that code change just to refine that to say Cave Creek supplemental standards and or the adopted most recent Maricopa Uniform Standards specifications for construction standards. So. And with that, I can answer any questions. Michelle, I'm not sure if you want to mention any of the things that are happening in other jurisdictions in regards to this. I think, we hear more and more in the news. This year has been a fairly good year as far as water resources on the Colorado River, but that's because we had an exceptional snowpack. I don't think anybody's thinking that this is resetting us and getting us out of the situation that we've been in for the past 24 years with water resources, especially on the Colorado River. But it bought us some more time. So this allows the town to look at what other jurisdictions have done and make it something specific to the town of Cave Creek.
I would just add, Sean, that's a good presentation. I would just add that, you know, we can look at other jurisdictions in the Phoenix area, but they really are a little different than Cave Creek in that most of them are somewhat groundwater dependent, and Cave Creek does not have a diverse portfolio of water. So when there's a shortage on the Colorado River, there will be a shortage in Cave Creek's water potentially that it's available to provide to customers right away in that year. So you do need to have a little bit more aggressive drought management plan. You need the teeth as well as the incentives. So your plan is probably a little more developed than some of the other communities I've seen. I did see that the city of Phoenix just implemented a $4 surcharge for drought purposes that will go into effect in the customer's October bill. I'll be paying that. And we've also seen the flow restrictors in Las Vegas, in Nevada. California has some pretty aggressive measures that they take for drought management. So these provisions are starting to show up in a lot of different places. The city of Phoenix has used flow restrictors for people who don't pay their bills before in a pilot program. So those are scary things, but that's exactly why they're needed. Hopefully they won't ever be needed, but they're there if they're needed or needed to be threatened.
Okay. So the action tonight is just the first reading of the ordinance. And then what we'll bring back to the next council meeting is the second hearing. And then once the second reading is occurred, I believe there's this 30-day waiting period before it becomes effective in the town code. But this is just, we're going through the process to amend town code to allow staff and council to implement the recommendations of the drought management plan for the town. With that, we can answer any questions you may have.
Questions? I have two. And I pre-sent these in to staff, so I didn't get them entirely cold on these, but on page 318, section 52-406, rates and charges for water service in the combined Cave Creek Desert Hills service areas established. I guess I don't like lumping Cave Creek and Desert Hills under that category of requiring us to not have to have the same cost neutral approach. And I just say that from the standpoint of, I mean, the town of Cave Creek has been the angel for Desert Hills. They wouldn't have water out there if it wasn't for our town, and for the water allocation that our town has been, what is 700,000 or 600 or 700 acre feet per year, which is getting close to 33% of the town's allocation. So the town of Cave Creek, if we are short of water, that's where our water will have gone. It's become a policy throughout the country to charge customers outside of the town a higher rate for the town administering that service. And I'm aware of nothing in state law, but if state law does not prohibit charging more for customers outside of the city limits, and I know that other towns do that, for example, I believe Phoenix does, I would propose that for the second reading, we not lump Cave Creek and Desert Hills together in that same cost neutral approach. So I'd ask our staff and Michelle to comment on that.
Yes, I understand the concern. I would point out that that is an existing ordinance. It's not being changed for that purpose. That's how it's been in the ordinances. It allows, the current wording in that ordinance allows the town to charge a different rate to its different service areas. And there is law that it affects this question. There was a case Young versus the City of Phoenix in 1989, where City of Phoenix customers that were located outside the city challenged the City of Phoenix because they were paying nearly double what residents were paying for water. And the way that they challenged it was through a civil rights claim, and that was not really the way to challenge it. But the Supreme Court, or excuse me, the Supreme Court of Arizona reviewed the statutes. And there is a statute that says when a town takes over a private water company, which was the case in Cave Creek's history, Cave Creek took over Desert Hills Water Company, then you must continue providing water service to those customers that exist at the time. And you've done that. There's commentary in the case that indicates that even though you can charge different rates, they must be reasonable and non-discriminatory, which is standard rate making law for public utility services. When someone's getting the type of service that's kind of a monopoly service, they don't have a choice between you or another provider that might be cheaper. And typically when we say reasonableness and rates, it's really hard to say a factor is reasonable without question. But generally in rate making law, it is well accepted that costs or expenses are a valid reason to charge different rates to different people. So that's an easy way to distinguish your rates in Desert Hills versus your rates in Cave Creek. And I believe Sean did that in the last rate study. He compared different costs for the different service areas. That's entirely defensible under the law as a reasonable type of discrimination. There may be other things that you can add to that list of factors in setting rates. They would just need to be reasonable and non-discriminatory.
I would just use that language and just make it so that it wasn't so definitive that the town and Desert Hills had to be done on a cost recovery, strictly on cost recovery, and put your reasonable language in there. So I'm not proposing anything, but I'm just saying, I'm putting my business hat on. Don't unreasonably restrict us when there's no need to do so, whether it's a contract or whether it's a town code.
Mr. Mayor, if you go to the fourth line of the section you're reading, 52-406, it confirms what Michelle just mentioned. It says you can look to the proportion of cost of securing, developing, serving, and delivering in the particular service area. So that does allow you to have different rates. And normally it will be excess rates out of town. I'm the Safford City Attorney. We have a water company, and we were actually serving Thatcher. We have to charge the Thatcher customer on the same street more the same because the costs are the same. But the minute you get two streets in and the minute it becomes more expensive, you can charge Thatcher more. That's why, and Michelle, we worked on this when we did 52-406. The particular service area allows you to define service areas, which include Desert Hills.
But it's
It
still,
does allow you to look at cost, securing, developing, and conserving.
yeah, but I'm asking for more than that.
What do you want?
We're supplying 600 acre feet of Cave Creek water, which has an economic impact to our town, for example. And could make droughts worse in the future, that water that we would have that we were not going to have because it's going to Desert Hills. And all I want to do is not have this limiting language to make it more words like reasonable, so that we weren't strictly based on a cost recovery system. I've heard nothing that says we can't. I've heard no legal arguments that we can't do this.
I think it's a question of what is reasonable and what factor would we add to cost that would be reasonable. And you're right, we could change the language to reasonable, although I'll leave the procedure to Bill's discretion. But it begs the question of what is reasonable other than cost as a factor in determining a water rate that is a public utility.
And
So
Figuring out what reasonable is now. I'm just saying, let's put some
Mhm.
language in there. So if we determine at some point in the future, something else is reasonable, we have the ability to do that without changing town code. Anyway. This first reading, so we can proceed on to my second one, which is, Sean, this is more of an engineering thing. I would like to add something to 151-15, Public Works Code, that allows you the authority to modify these standards if necessary to achieve water quality or water conservation. Because these national codes are written by pipe suppliers and suppliers to sell more of whatever they have, whether it's pipe or higher diameters or anything else. And we have a quality problem at times. We have to waste water to do that. The size of the lines is always an issue with me when you have an 8-inch line going to 3 houses. So I just want to give you some wiggle room under this here to apply engineering judgment where there is a quality or conservation issue. It's just a simple phrase in there somewhere for that.
Yeah, I can talk to Bill and Michelle how we can add that in. This is really referring to what standards apply, and we actually do need to finish off the Cave Creek supplemental standards for utilities. It's something that the town hasn't finally completed and documented, and that could be within that document also. So, yeah, we'll look at how we can best address that, sir.
That the town supplemental will control, just so I'm trying to give you flexibility to.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. Yep.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
Okay. Other comments? I guess we are at public comment.
David Phelps.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on this issue. On page, I think it's page 2 of section 52-406, section 2B. We put a strike through the words Cave Creek and Desert Hills areas, and I'm just wondering why we decided to strike those terms. It appears that we could then provide standpipe services to anyone, and I just want to get clarity on that. Who's clicking your pen?
Oh, me. Bobby,
it's like a fireplace out here.
Okay. I stopped, David.
Thank you, Bob. I'm sorry, Sean. Could you help me with that?
Yes, Mayor Council, Ms. Phelps. That was just, I think we do offer standpipe services still in Desert Hills. We're actually working on an amendment with the West Side DeWitt area for the standpipe that got created at the town's water ranch to allow the Desert Hills customers to get moved over to that. So we don't have to invest in 2 different standpipes. We have a limited number of standpipe customers. We're not adding to that. That's actually based on the 2021 water resource policy for Desert Hills. It's only the existing customers. And I believe we actually only have 6 active standpipe customers that are paying the monthly fee. So we won't add to that because we won't have any more contractual obligations. So we just thought that was just more of a cleanup in the text, just to refer back to, we don't have, just strike, our thought was just strike that out. In the future, we anticipate only have 1 standpipe moving forward for the town and a limited number of customers.
Have the clarity that you have to be a town resident to benefit from the town standpipe, or you have to be a Desert Hills.
An existing Desert Hills customer, and that goes back to the 2021 water resource policy, which says we won't add new customers. Even standpipe customers are considered new customers in Desert Hills.
Exactly. Without the clarity of that, you could have people approaching you with the Miss Apple dumpling that we want to sell water out of standpipes, when we really just want to have it as a benefit for the town resident.
Yeah.
Also, on a matter close to this is when I was looking at the outline of the Cave Creek water service area in the last couple of months, Sean, I noticed that going up Spur Cross Road, where we have that immense pipe and we have the need to actually get rid of water up in there, that the service area is very small going up Spur Cross Road. is there potential for people close to that main to tie into the service, to tie into Cave Creek water service, or what's the kind of standing?
Mayor Council, what's being discussed is the Cave Creek Private Water Company had extended a 12-inch line up Spur Cross Road with the anticipation of that feeding what was going to be a development in Spur Cross, which the town elected to try to take control of by both also creating the Spur Cross Conservation Area and purchasing the water company. But we are left with a 12-inch water line. It actually goes up from Schoolhouse Road and crosses Fleming Springs Road and goes up Spur Cross Road. So it's about 3 to 4 miles of 12-inch pipeline. Yeah, right now, anybody who was close to that line could ask for a connection. We have most of the customers directly adjacent to the line are connected. There are some discussions about how we could loop that. That's actually a topic we're looking at with the integrated master plan right now. I'll give you a prelude to that is that, the town doesn't have the water resources to provide water services to every developable parcel in town limits. So do we need to set limits on that? And that 12-inch line is an issue for the town. Long term, do we need to look at a way to loop that line somehow or maybe replace it with something else, a smaller diameter line? But that's actually something we are looking at. That is a piece of infrastructure that has a negative impact on the town's water system from a water quality standpoint, because we do have to flush water out of that line because we do not have enough customers on it. But we've been approached by some property owners along Cave Creek Wash in that area, north of Rancho Manana Resort. And we do not have any plans right now as a town to actually extend service into there. And we have to have this discussion as the few discussions I've had is people are asking just not to extend potable water service, but they're looking for fire service, which that in effect doesn't help the system because it doesn't move the line unless there's a fire event. So it gives me even more lines to deal with out there. But so that's a topic we're actually actively discussing as part of the master plan. We hope to be coming back to council in the next either next meetings or set a separate workshop to actually have that meeting with council, discussion with council on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, other public comments? We are done. All right. So at this point, we are looking for a motion.
I'll do it, Mayor. It's kind of long.
We'll go overtime tonight, right?
Motion to approve first reading of ordinance 2023-06, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending the town of Cave Creek Town Code, Title 5, Public Works, Chapter 52, Water, Sections 52.031, waste of water, failure of customer to make repairs to pipes, valves, and fixtures. That's 52.406, rates and charges for water service in the combined Cave Creek and Desert Hill service areas established. Section 52.501, drought management response procedure. Section 52.999, penalty and town code. Title 15, land usage. Chapter 151, building regulations. Section 151.15, public works code.
Second.
There's no financial aspect, so I guess the voice vote will work. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion passes 7-0. I believe that's the last item on the agenda.
Mayor, can I make one observation before during the meeting? I noticed that Councilman Augerton got up and took something to Mr. Sims. And I would suggest that next time you bring enough for everyone.
You gotta be coffee. On that note.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Meeting adjourned.